With a huge increase in popularity of RVs, travel trailers, van life, overlanding, camping, and sort of the outdoors movement, as everybody's wanted to go outdoors more during the pandemic these past couple years, there's a lot of people wondering how to power up their rigs, how to power up their equipment, and do you still need a generator, especially with the rising popularity of solar panels? So what I have for you today is essentially a crash course on generators. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk you through why you might need a generator, how it compares to solar panels, and why you're still going to need a generator even if you have solar panels and good batteries. I'm going to talk you through the different types of generators, inverter versus non-inverter generators. I'm going to show you how to determine the size of the generator you would need to power up your equipment. And we'll talk about some practical tips for hauling them, transporting them, dealing with them, gas versus propane, and things like that. So with that out of the way, let's jump right in and get started. So question number one is, do you need a generator or not? And also, can you use solar panels to replace a generator? So here's the cases where you are going to need a generator. If you want to go dry camping, that means camping without hookups in your RV or travel trailer, and you want to power stuff like your air conditioner or your microwave, those high draw AC or alternating current items, then you're going to need a generator in order to do that, unless you want to invest in a huge solar array and a huge array of expensive lithium batteries, which we'll talk about in a minute. On the other hand, if you plan to dry camp, but you don't care about using those high draw items like your AC and your microwave, then you can get away with just some good batteries, one or two good batteries, and some solar panels with a charge controller to keep those batteries trickle charged during the day when the sun's shining. That will be enough for you, and we'll talk about how that works. Also, if you're going to only camp with hookups like in RV parks, then you don't need a generator at all and you don't have to worry about it. So the next part of that question is, why can't you use solar panels to power those things I talked about, like your air conditioner and your microwave? So while you can use solar panels to keep your batteries trickle charged, here's the problem with trying to use them to power those high draw items. So here's why you're going to have a problem if you try to run those really intense high draw items using solar and batteries. The typical battery that you're going to find in an RV, like the travel trailer behind me, is going to be somewhere around 100 amp hours. If you convert that, because it's a 12-volt system, that comes out around 1200 watt hours. What that means basically is you could run about 1200 watts for about 1 hour before your battery was totally dead. Now that's assuming that there's no other draws happening and that your battery is 100% and you're going to drain it all the way down to 0%. In reality, you can't fully discharge these batteries. You're going to have a lot of issues with that. So you're not even going to get that 1200 watts out of it. But let's just use that as our example. So let's say you want to use your air conditioner. Well, your air conditioner runs probably, depending on the size of your AC, they have different sizes, but it's going to take between 800 and 1500 watts while it's running. Not to mention, when you start the AC, when the compressor starts, it takes a huge draw, and it's going to need to draw 2,000 or 3,000 watts to get that thing started. Even if you have an inverter on your rig and you have a few hundred watts of solar panels, that's simply not enough, even with that stuff set up, to give you enough juice to run a high draw item like that. Your microwave, you might get away with it if you're very, very careful with the use and you have a really big solar array. But even then, a microwave takes around, 6 to 100 to 1,000 watts while it's running, which is quite a lot of power and a huge drain on your batteries. Hi everyone, my name is Ian and you're watching Big Rock Outdoors. This is a new spin-off of my old channel, Big Rock Media, which has now become Big Rock Moto and is dedicated just to motorcycle content. So in this channel, you'll find content on Jeeps, travel trailers, outdoor sports, mountain biking, car and truck reviews, and so much more. If you want to support the creation of more content like this, there's a few easy things you can do. You can subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. You can leave a thumbs up on all the videos. You can leave a comment on all the videos. And you can also consider being a Patreon supporter to gain access to behind-the-scenes footage, tips and tricks, rants and raves, and so much more. If you're looking for my motorcycle content, that's my other channel, Big Rock Moto. I'll link to that here in the card and also down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for your support. And now back to your video. So let's say you're stubborn and you don't want gas engines and you want to use solar to try to run, let's say, an air conditioner. So in order to do that, in order to get around 1,000 watts of continuous power to your RV, you'd have to have 1,000 watts of solar energy coming in. So let's assume that you have a bright sunny afternoon, which obviously usually isn't the case, but let's go with that. And let's assume you have an unlimited budget to buy solar panels. So because solar panels are not 100% efficient, if you took 100-watt solar panels, you might figure that you get around 60 to 70 watts out of them. I know that from experience. So you would need somewhere around 12 to 15 of those 100-watt solar panels in order to provide enough current going through your system to sustain the draw coming out from your air conditioner. You could never be able to fit that many solar panels on the roof of your RV or travel trailer, I guess, unless you have like a huge RV or travel trailer and you're willing to spend that money. Of course, you'd also need a huge battery bank that would be very expensive in order to deal with that much current coming through it and deal with that much capacity. So it'd be a very expensive proposition, and a generator is going to be a much more cost-effective, easier solution in a case like that. All that being said, like I mentioned before, having some solar panels connected to your batteries will be enough to sustain draws from smaller items like your water pump, your TV, your fridge, and things like that. Just don't think you're going to run your microwave or your AC for any extended amount of time without having either a plug-in to shore power or having a generator. So let's briefly talk about types of generators. So this generator that you see here, you might be familiar with this kind. You're often going to see this on construction sites, job sites, places where noise is not an issue and where you want the most amount of power for the least amount of money. Unfortunately, some people I've seen using these in RV campgrounds and places like that, and that's a huge, huge problem. If you are purchasing a generator to use for RV or trailer or van camping, absolutely do not buy a generator that looks like this. This is a non-inverter generator. It does not have a very clean power output. It's also extraordinarily loud. This thing is so loud that you will disrupt everybody within 500 feet of where you're camping. So absolutely do not use a kind like this. This generator here is something that I have wired into a transfer box into my house to use when we have power outages up here in the mountains where I live. It works amazing for that. I don't care that it's loud because it's down here under the house and I can barely hear it in the house. I run it on propane and it gives me 8,000 watts of power, which is awesome. But this is not the type of thing you would take camping. All right, now this is the kind of generator you want to use if you're RV camping. So this is an inverter generator and it's a closed frame generator. The inverter part is important because it gives you a much cleaner power output for powering sensitive electronic devices as opposed to the construction generator I showed you a second ago. The other thing about this type of generator is that they're quiet. These things are definitely quiet enough to run in a busy campground, places with other campers around you. They're not going to totally piss off all your neighbors. So whether you get this one, which is a Yamaha 2000 watt unit, which I've had for a long time, whether you get the Costco generators, which I think use a Yamaha motor, whether you have a Honda, they're all very quiet and they do what you need to do. Now for inverter generators like this that are enclosed, they start at 1,000 watts. They have the 2,000 watt units like this. I think the newer ones are 2,200 watts actually. They've done that to help you with some of the air conditioners out there. And then you go up to like a 3,000 watt or a 3,500 watt generator. And those are the ones I'd recommend because you're going to be able to power most AC units on most trailers out there. The other thing about these generators is that they're portable. They're light enough that you can lift them up and move them around, lift them up into your truck. They have these carry handles on them, so that's nice. Some of the larger units, like get into the 3,000 watt, 4,000 watt units, and they're a little bit heavier, but they're still manageable if you're strong, or maybe your partner can help you load it up into the truck. So what about this? Now this is not a generator. I see some very misleading marketing on the internet about these, calling them solar generators. That is the worst terminology I've ever heard. This does not generate anything. This is simply a battery pack with a small inverter in it. So it's got these AC plugs. So it has an inverter to convert the DC power in the battery to some AC power here on these plugs. It also has some USB outlets, some different DC outlets, things like that. So these are great for powering maybe a laptop, charging your cell phone, running some very small devices, use it to run a portable fridge freezer, which is great for that. But this is only 300 watt hours, so that's going to run out very quickly, even if you're running smaller devices. So this has hardly any energy compared to what you can get out of this. Now, yes, you can plug a small solar panel into this and keep it charged up, and maybe power something like one of those small portable refrigerators, something along those lines. But this is not a generator, and it does not replace an actual gasoline generator. So the next question is, how do you know what size generator you need? Generators come anywhere from 1,000 watts to 2,000 watts, 3,500 watts, all the way up to 5,000 watts and above. So how much do you actually need to power your stuff? So you need to look up the starting wattage or the starting power draw for your equipment. Here's what I mean. So an appliance, something like an air conditioner, is the most problematic with this. So an air conditioner may take like 1,250 watts to run it, and I think that's the running wattage for a 13.5 thousand BTU AC, but it might take twice that, or around 2,500 watts, when that compressor has to start. Now I know, yes, you can get the soft start system, but let's assume you don't have that. So one way to do this is to look up the starting wattage of the appliances you want to run and add those together. Well, probably you're not going to be starting all your appliances at once, so just take your biggest one. Let's say your AC has a starting wattage of 2,500 and a running wattage of 1,200 watts. Then give yourself some headroom over that. So if it's 2,500 watt to start it, you might want a 3,000 or 3,500 watt generator. The reason is that there's power losses because of elevation, because of heat, because equipment never works at 100% efficiency. So always build in 20, 30, 40% headroom on top of what you need. If you can't find a starting wattage in the literature or online or asking on the forums, you can generally figure out the rated wattage that it runs at and maybe multiply it by around 2. So if it's 1,000 watts at running state, it might be around 2,000 watts to start that thing up. So you can use that as a general guide, although that's not always going to be 100% accurate. For the vast majority of people who are buying a generator for their RV or their travel trailer, assuming you're running a single AC unit and occasionally a microwave and trying to keep everything else charged up, a 3,500 watt generator, which has become very popular size, especially with a Predator, is going to work for 90–95% of people out there, because it gives you enough to start up your AC unit, even if it's a larger AC unit, to run your microwave, to deal with the loads of your trailer or your RV just fine. Now, if you're buying a generator for smaller usage, like maybe you're an overlander, maybe you're a camper, a van life person, well, then you might be able to get away with a 1,000 watt generator or a 2,000 watt generator. But honestly, if you're not running a microwave or an air conditioner or other high draw AC items, then you can probably get away with the small power station I showed a minute ago with solar panels to keep that charged up, or just solar panels to keep your batteries in your van charged up. So I mentioned I'll give you some practical tips and things to consider when you're shopping for a generator. So here they are. A few things to look at. Some generators come with a remote start. Now, a remote start could be very, very useful, and here's why. Let's say you're inside your trailer, it's raining outside, or it's cold, or it's nighttime, and you want to start up your generator because you want to run your air conditioner or your microwave or whatever. Then it's nice to be able to sit inside your trailer and, just like starting your car from your key fob, hit a button and start that generator up outside, not have to go outside and start it. So that's something you might want to look at if that matters to you. Another thing is propane versus gasoline. So some generators have dual fuel, which I really like. Dual fuel is a great option because you can run it on propane if you'd like to, or you can run it on gasoline. Propane is a little bit less efficient. When you run it on propane, you only get like 80% of the stated power output, but that's okay. You can usually live with that. It just depends on whether you want to carry around propane cans, which tend to be a bit cleaner and less smelly, or you want to carry around gas cans, which can be a bit more dangerous, a bit more smelly to deal with. So that's something that you can look at. And a lot of people are going to the propane powered generators. They also sometimes tend to be a bit quieter when they're running on propane. Another thing to consider is, how heavy is the generator? Are you going to be able to lift it into your pickup truck bed or your SUV or whatever you're doing? Also, if it's a gasoline generator, or any generator really, it's going to have this problem, is if you're in an enclosed cabin like an SUV or a van, it's going to be having gas fumes in your cabin. That's going to be a real problem, a real concern. So that's something you're going to have to consider. You might need to mount it somehow to a carrier on the back of your vehicle, or somehow deal with that. That's something you really want to keep in mind, and it's probably driving some of the popularity in these larger portable power stations. I've seen 1,000-watt power stations now, things like that, where you're just not having to deal with a generator at all. But again, you can't run high-draw items off that, and those batteries are going to run down really fast. A couple other things before I end. The cables for the generators, you might need adapters, so make sure you know before you go camping, like, do you have the right plugs to, connect your generator into your trailer, the right length and the right type of plug, so make sure you have that. Also, keep in mind that generators, they're an engine, they're a combustion engine. They need maintenance, so you have a spark plug, you have an air filter, and you have oil. You need to maintain those things. I like to change the oil in my generators, around once a year, more if you're using it a lot, but keep that in mind. They usually hold a pretty small quantity of oil, less than a quart or a liter, so you're gonna wanna change that out pretty often. Keep your air filter clean and change your spark plug every couple of years. Just keep it in good running condition and it'll last a long time. So stay tuned, because I'm going to have future videos covering more topics about generators, those portable power stations that I talked about, solar panels, and so we'll have those coming in the future, so please stay tuned and subscribe for that. I hope this was useful. Let me know what questions you have down below, because I read and respond to all the questions on my channel. Really appreciate the feedback. Let's talk about it. What questions do you have for your particular unit about generators? Let me know and we'll cover it. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for your support. Happy camping, and we'll see you out there.